Hi, I'm Daphne, and I am a certified date and relationship coach. And today I want to talk about this movie that's been around for a very long time. And it's actually celebrating its 20th year. And I know it's being re released in theaters right now, and that is Brokeback Mountain.
Jack Twist.
Ennis.
Your folks just stop at Ennis?
Delmar.
Well, nice to know you, Ennis Delmar.
Now, let me just say to y'all, I watched this movie a long time ago, and I recently watched it again. And it was hard for me when I watched it the first time, but it's even harder for me to see it this time. And I'll tell you why. This movie, if you haven't ever seen it, right, I think it was one of those movies that, really helped the community, to evolve in a way to where it's like we're bringing out, the reality of stuff, right? The truth of, how things can be, not for everybody, but for some people. So there's these two guys, one is Jack, one is Ennis, and they're both, like rodeo cowboy type of guys, right? The kind of guys you wouldn't think that would be gay or queer or whatever that is, right? And let me just say this, because they never once said that they were gay or queer, right? I know that the word queer was mentioned by Ennis in the movie, which I was really glad to hear, right? But Ennis never claimed to being queer. And Jack, I don't think ever claimed being gay, really, even though he spoke of, living a gay lifestyle. Now, the difference between the two is that Jack was willing to be open and live that gay lifestyle, right? And you could see that in the movie where he talked about with Ennis, let's, find a place, a ranch where we can, herd, sheep or cattle or whatever he was talking about, right? And he mentioned that to someone else later on, because he was okay with living that same-sex gay lifestyle, that queer lifestyle. But Ennis was, and the reason why is that Ennis actually experienced firsthand how, two gay men were brutally treated, when he was growing up. So he knew that would be, very detrimental to their lives if they tried doing that, especially where they were, because they were in the South, right? And like I said, they were around all these cowboys, all these straight people, and, all these people who were what we consider today homophobic, right? And all the things. And so, Ennis, he knew that couldn't be his life, right? That he couldn't live that lifestyle. So Ennis went off and got married to his, childhood sweetheart. They had children, but he couldn't fight the fact that he had feelings for Jack, that he loved Jack, that he wanted to be with Jack, emotionally and physically, right? But he needed to hide that for his benefit. Jack, on the other hand, he didn't want to hide it because he loved Ennis. And the thing about this movie is that it went on for like 20 years, them, hiding their relationship, even though people suspected it. And Ennis's wife actually seen them kissing and stuff. Right? Where they're kissing, and then, and it's interesting to me how much joy and how much happiness, like every time they thought about, okay, we're going to go on this trip together, right? They became so happy. There was all this joy and excitement about, I'm going to go be with this person that I really care about. I can't name this what it is, but I know it's something, right? And then over time it became, a little bit heartbreaking to see that, Ennis, because of his lifestyle, with his children and his ex-wife, and, just being in this small town and stuff and trying to work and make a living, he really wanted to be in hiding, right? And so, and he had other responsibilities where Jack, he just, it became heartbreaking for him over time that Ennis couldn't spend the kind of time with him that he wanted, because he really wanted them to be together on a regular basis. So let me talk about like what I what concerns me about this movie, because this movie was set in like 1963, so it was a long, long time ago, right? It was based on, times, in 1963, right? And I wasn't even born in 1963, so that tells you something right there, honey. But the thing about it is that, we've come a long way. I want to say that. But yet, when I was watching this movie, it made me think that even though we've come a long way, and y'all know we're still dealing with these same issues today, right? People are still being attacked. People still are being brutally hurt. People are still being killed, right? Just because of who they are. And that made me really, really sad. And I'm not going to lie, Ennis always warned Jack, don't be so open about this stuff because this is what could happen. And even though, it was reported that he was killed a certain type of way, we all know based on the movie that he was brutally beat to death, right?
Ennis Delmar.
Who? Who is this?
Ennis Delmar. No buddy of Jack's.
Jack used to mention you. You're the fishing buddy. The hunting buddy, I know that. Would have let you know what happened, but I wasn't sure about your name or address. Jack kept his friends' addresses in his head.
That's why I'm calling, is see what happened.
Oh, yeah. Jack was pumping up a flat on the truck out on a back road when the tire blew up. The rim of the tire slammed into his face, broke his nose and jaw, and knocked him unconscious on his back. By the time somebody come along, he'd drowned in his own blood. He was only 39 years old. Hello? Hello? Hello?
Was he buried down there?
And that's what Ennis was trying to avoid for them, and especially for Jack, who was more open. And this, to me, is the sad thing that really I just want to talk about today, is that as far as we've come, and we have, don't get me wrong, we still got a long way to go, and I just want to say that, I love this in a way to where it's like, they showed these two men together, right? But what I didn't love so much is that they had to hide, and they felt so unsafe, right? And the reality is what it is. But all I want to say, and this is the point I want to make, is that, you should be able to love who you want to love, right? And we should be able to live the kind of lifestyles we want to live. But, after watching this movie again, it made me realize that, depending on where you are, right? Depending on where you live, and you still have to be really, really careful about the lifestyle that you live, even though, we've come a long way in the country and the world of accepting people for who they are. So let me just say let me talk about what I liked about this movie. And what I liked was this love story. It was a long love story. It was drawn out. It was hidden, unfortunately. But I truly believe that these two men loved each other. They really cared for each other deeply. And it broke my heart, the fact that they couldn't be together. They didn't feel like they could be openly together, right? And I know it was like 1960 something, and they were cowboys. They were on the circuit, all these things, they were, handlers. I think that's what you call them, right? When you like handle cows and sheep and all the stuff, right?
Untangle them, laying sheep out of ours, I guess.
Either way, the whole point is that, they were living in a world that was very masculine, very hetero, and it was scary for them. And so I just want to say this, because I knew that when I went back to watch this movie, it was going to make me sad, right? And it was going to make me like, unhappy and frustrated to some degree, right? But I always like to talk about the good stuff, and to me, one of the things that I think was good about this movie, and it wasn't said in the movie, but I think Ennis's daughter knew that he was, gay or queer, or that he liked, people of the same sex, right? She never said anything about it, but I think she knew. And I think that was the part that made me happy, is that she accepted him for who he was, right? She didn't like make him feel bad. She didn't call him out. She didn't say anything about it, but she accepted him for who he was. And that's the part that really made me happy. And like I said, they don't say that in the movie, but maybe I'm reading between the lines, and maybe I just want to find some goodness out of this, other than I truly believe these two men loved each other. So let me just say this, that as far as we've come, we still have a long ways to go. But let me also say this, that if you haven't seen the movie, please go see the movie, because I truly believe, are making progress. And we're going to, like, one day, I believe, be a country, be a world where it's going to be okay. And maybe that's just the optimist in me, and I'm okay with that. But I just want to say that it's a beautiful love story. It's a beautiful movie. And if you haven't seen it, please do. And I just want to say thank you. I'm Daphne, and thank you for watching another episode of Coachable Moments at the Movies.